In this episode, we're going to talk about more toys I wish I had when I was a kid. So, stick around. Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name's Rob, and in this episode, we're going to talk about more toys that I wish I had as a kid. Now, this is number 10 in this series, and believe me, there are no signs of it slowing down, because there were so many toys that either slipped between my fingers, were forgotten by Santa, or my parents were just plain jerks. And I mean that in the most lighthearted of ways, because, yeah, as a parent now, I know how hard it is. So, when I talk about them being jerks, that's just the child in me reacting to something I wish I would have had when I was still a kid. Anyway, let's kick things off with number 1 on the list, and that is the Force Lightsaber by Kenner. Released in 1980 and later in 1983, the Force Lightsaber was, awesome. And this is coming from a person that had to use sticks and broken mop handles and other various things to pretend to have a lightsaber. This thing was awesome. Nowadays, you trip over lightsabers at your local Walmart or Target. There's so many of them. They're in the clearance aisle. But back then, there was only one. And it came in either yellow, red, and later green with Return of the Jedi. Now, these were not collapsible. They were just one long piece of plastic with a big chunky handle, but at the end of the plastic was a hole. So when you swung it, you would get the hole, 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 hole. Not like today where you get them and they're sensitive that you touch it and it has different electricity crackling noises and all these bells and whistles. But back then, it was just the most rudimentary of things, but just so great. Yet again, like I said, I played with sticks, mop handles, broken brooms, you name it. I pretended it was a sword, a lightsaber, an axe, whatever. But to have an official one would have been a dream come true. I remember in the store, they were sold in a cardboard box with the lightsabers sticking out of it, and it was on the floor because they were so tall. And I only remember seeing them in one place, and that was actually in the card and bookstore in our town. Other than that, I don't ever remember seeing them in stores, but every time we went into that card and bookstore, I wanted them. I played with them. I would get in trouble for playing with them in the store. But can you blame me? I use sticks for Christ's sakes. Now, this is official. I would be a Jedi with this. Number 2 on the list is going to be hard to pronounce. Now let me throw it up on the screen. Okay, how do you pronounce this? Is it Gayfand? Gayefand? Guffand? I don't know. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it was awesome. This came from the Otherworld toy line from 1983, made by Arco. And this two-headed dragon was just awesome. I was such a big fan of these toys. They were bendy little sword and sorcerer guys with glow-in-the-dark weapons. Right there, glow-in-the-dark, cutting-edge technology for a 1980s kid. And they had just neat aesthetic to them. They were freaky looking, they were neat, they looked very otherworldly, which fit the toy line. Now this two-headed dragon, I love the beaks on it, I love the whiskers coming off of it, and it had a saddle so one of your figures could ride it. Now I remember seeing this in the local Woolsworth, where that was the only place I could find the Otherworld toys growing up, and not for very long. They were one of those you blinked and you missed it toy lines, unfortunately, because it could have had a lot of room to grow because of just how different they were. They ended up being the size of a G.I. Joe figure, which that's when I played with them, but they were bendy. You could do anything with them. They could hang on anything. I mean, they could wrestle. I mean, Sergeant Slaughter and them could be putting people in the camel clutch and stuff. I mean, or Cobra Clutch, or whatever his finisher was at the time. Camel Clutch, that's Iron Sheik. Anyway, this was just a neat toy, and they had many neat little mounts and critters in this toy line. Now, like I said, it was blinked and you missed it. I remember seeing it on the shelves one day, and then it was gone the next. So that's how it slipped between my fingers, and I can't really blame anyone. Some lucky kid got to take it home with them. Good for them. Now, number 3, made by Tomy in 1985, and that is the Hoopbot. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of Clash of the Titans and Bubo the Owl. Now, they never made a Bubo the Owl toy, even though they had one planned. Hoopbot is the next best thing. Just like Bubo, the Hoopbot would flap its wings, move its head around. Its eyes would light up, so that's a little bit different. Its feet would go up and down on its little perch. I mean, it didn't really do a lot. It was labeled as a robot, but it was just an automated toy. It didn't really do many robotic things. It was futuristic in the world of owls, but not in the world of robotics. But like I said, with its similarities to Bubo, I would have loved to have this. Now, 1985, I was 9 years old, so again, this was something I don't remember even seeing on the toy shelves. I remember seeing the commercials for them. I remember I had a buddy that had a large array of the Tomy robots. I don't know how, but he had the Hoopbot, and I was in love with that thing. Yeah. Growing up, we didn't travel to any of the big toy stores, and I never really frequented the aisles that would have the robot toys or the educational toys or anything like that. I was just in the action figure aisle usually. So I missed out on this. Can't really blame anybody. That's just how life was. Number 4 on the list is the Kermit the Frog puppet. Now, this was, for my well-being, I'll say, the life-size official Kermit the Frog, made by Fisher-Price in 1976. These were one of those toys, even though it was made in 1976, that stayed on the shelves for many, many years. I grew up watching The Muppet Show, and I loved it. I loved Kermit the Frog, and this would be like having him in my house all the time. He would be my buddy, he would be my pal, and I would have hours of fun with him. I just know I would. Now, again, I don't have a reason to why I didn't have one. I mean, the Muppets were a big hit in my house, and I had some of the little plastic figures that came on sticks, and they just bent at the waist, and other various little Muppet things here and there, but I never had any of the puppets. I know they had a Miss Piggy one as well. Oh, I also had a stuffed Fozzie. Man, I wish I still had that thing. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. That's a whole nother show of toys I wish I still had. But I wish I had this Kermit. Like I said, it would have been like having the real deal in your house. Now, number 5 is the Ram motorcycle from G.I. Joe. Released by Hasbro in 1982. What more do you got to say? Motorcycles were awesome. And when you were a kid, motorcycles were the coolest of the cool. This totally rad motorcycle came with a machine gun as a sidecar and was in the classic green color scheme of all of the original Joes. There was something so realistic about it, yet so fanciful. I mean, it was just an awesome motorcycle, but then throw on a giant cannon like a sidecar. I mean, I guess it was more like a Gatling gun, but that's perfection. To a kid, that is, just the top of the top. Now, I remember the original Joes. I had a couple of them, but they were a blink and you missed it. I feel like they probably didn't make as many as the later series of the figures went on. So I had a friend at the time that had all that stuff, but I could never find it on the shelves. It was probably cheap enough that my parents probably would have bought it for me. But yet again, I never saw it in the wild. I really missed out on a lot of the first waves of G.I. Joe because they just disappeared and they were replaced with new waves all the time, constantly churning out new figures, which was probably one of the reasons that I have such a infatuation with the toy line today, because they just constantly new. Oh, such a great thing to collect. But anyway, the Ram motorcycle. I wish I would have had that when I was a kid. Anyway, this was just a quick list of 5 toys I wish I would have had when I was a kid. This is number 10 in the series, like I said, so you can look back at other ones. I mean, I talk about a little bit of everything with these. I mean, some toys that I'm embarrassed that I wanted, some toys are holy grails I wish I could find today. But these were all things that I wanted when I was a kid that I just was never able to get a hold of, and still to this day don't have. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them and I love getting back to everybody. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.